The title for this message that I wrote down back in July when I was planning this series was Renewal and Rebirth. And there was a colon after the pandemic. Of course, at that time, we really thought that this would be after the pandemic. But someone failed to send a memo to Miss Delta. And she's come roaring in, taking advantages of regions like ours with high vaccine resistors, and bringing all of our post-pandemic messages, celebrations, and now our in-person services to a halt. So I deleted the after the pandemic part, and now my message is simply entitled Renewal and Rebirth. Has anyone ever asked you, have you been born again? What has been your response? Mine has changed through the years. I walked down the aisle of the Baptist church during a revival when I was 9 years old, and I shook the pastor's hand, told him I was ready to be saved and born again, and had the experience of being dunked under the water and brought back up as a representation of my rebirth. As an adult, I was more likely to wonder what in the world people meant by that question, and to question my own self as to whether I could give a positive response. Now, as a Unitarian Universalist, I respond with a joyful, yes, I've been born again, and again, and again, and again. I'm still Jane, but I'm not the same person I was at 9 or 29 or even 59. Sometimes the changes have been gradual. Sometimes they've been some kind of enlightenment I've received through my reading or dreaming or by the grace of lived experiences, including losing loved ones and welcoming new life. And along the way, my faith has been subdued and renewed, realigned and refined. I imagine that many of you have had similar experiences. Now we know that we don't have the same bodies we had when we were children or younger adults. Did you know that the body's cells largely replace themselves every 7 to 10 years? In other words, old cells mostly die and are replaced by new ones during this time span. This cell renewal process happens more quickly in certain parts of the body, but head to toe rejuvenation can take up to a decade or so. You may wonder why, if we have this renewal, some of us are getting old. Well, we're all getting old if we live long enough. It's just that some of us are ahead in that game. But that cell renewal slows down as you get older. That renewal reset button doesn't get pushed as often. I've got some places in my body that I think have forgotten how to renew. I haven't found that to be the case for my psyche, though. The person that I am continues to change. And how does that happen? Our body changes are affected by many things, including what we eat. When I was a child, I used to love reading the poems in my childcraft book. One of my favorites was the one you heard earlier in the service by poet Walter de la Mare about Miss T. The lines at the beginning and end remind us that whatever Miss T eats turns into Miss T. And whatever Jane eats turns into Jane. It makes Jane a healthy Jane or an unhealthy Jane. I think the same is true for our psyches and our souls. What we take in stimulates a new model of ourselves. We are renewed, and some may say reborn. I've shared with you all before that my old high school classmates sometimes ask me what happened to me to make me so different. And some have even said weird. I just say, I read. I've wondered recently how our experiences in this pandemic have affected who we are. Are you different in any way than you were before? I asked my Facebook friends to help me with my sermon by responding to that question and got quite an array of responses. I'll read some excerpts of some of the responses to you. I'd like for you to see if some of these reflect your own changes in who you have become or not. One said, spending so much time at home has been trying, but it's been a chance to go into a safe cocoon and do a lot of healing, like a caterpillar morphing gradually into a butterfly. It has been a lot of becoming. Another wrote, it's been a liminal time for me, time of reconsidering and evaluating and preparing and hanging out with the fur babies. I'm getting ready to walk into the classroom next week with no mask mandate, no vaccine requirement for students or faculty staff. And I'm trying to do this without it being from a place of fear. I am different though. I've learned more about personal boundaries, when to set them, when to take them down. I've become more centered. I've become more observant, I think. And I've also realized how much time I waste doing some things when I could be doing more productive things. Oh, Facebook, LOL. Another response was, I'm less extroverted. I'm less in shape. My concentration and attention span are both greatly reduced. Here's one that's more positive. The pandemic reaffirmed the connectedness of all people. I now feel more responsibility in being a good citizen. Someone who had a tough battle with COVID responded, well, before I got COVID-19 with pneumonia, I was going through the stages of life, get up, go to work, pay rent, go back to sleep. But now I see life a little better. I no longer think that life is short. I think of it as an adventure. And just because I'm not where I want to be yet, I'm at a better place than I was before. I always told myself that the best years of my life are coming soon. And yes, they are. Like the song goes, you know you have to go through hell before you get to heaven. And that is because you appreciate the rewards that you are given. Another shared what they had learned. The pandemic has taught me the importance of being the change. If I want to live in a less chaotic and harsh world, I need to focus on showing kindness and empathy to all. Another learner said, I learned to cook so many new things. I changed my diet and lost weight and have been staying at home with my kids. My spiritual practice has been to make a home and to learn to be patient as I manage my second son's early intervention therapies. Here's another honest reaction. I've lost much of my belief in people innately caring for one another. The selfish responses to protecting others by wearing masks, getting vaccinated, or even simply distancing has made a strong impact on how I view the community and country. One you shared, I wonder if my parents would have been able to move out of their home of 40 years were it not for the gripping impact of the pandemic on the economy. The lowered interest rates on loans seem to be an economic impetus for the community of folks edging to make the move to the next chapter of their lives. Another shared, there is no more normal in my life. I'm so thrilled that I made it through one more day. One admitted, I'm pissed a lot of the time. Does that count? It's not what I think of as good sermon content, but there it is. And this comment got more likes than any others. My colleague, David Mesner, wrote, I see beauty in the smallest places. Kindness is now the main touchstone of my practice. My sense of joy and power of creativity have just opened up. Then he replied, no, not really. I'm cranky, achy, and exhausted. A 55-year-old said, I'm more in touch with the possibility of my mortality. Hearing and knowing of others my age or younger losing their lives because of the ugly attack of COVID on their body is terrifying. This heightened awareness of immortality has caused me a great deal of anxiety and increased depression. So for me, the pandemic has caused this 55-year-old human a great deal of personal turmoil. Another shared, I'm so very tired from the anxiety, isolation. Children in daycare or school are getting sick. That means they return home. Parents will lose work. There's zero financial backup. I feel the weight and anxiety of the people doing the right thing, crushing my bones, and I feel for our medical system. Finally, one person summed up what others were perhaps implying. I've lost faith in humanity. I'm angry a lot. These mixed messages, some brutally honest about their more negative outlook, are not what I wanted to preach about when I chose the topic renewal and rebirth. I wanted sunshine and rainbows, not storm clouds and tornadoes. But here we are. And these experiences have affected us and our psyches and our souls. Maybe that's a good thing. In order for birth to take place, there's usually labor and pain. As one of my respondents shared, you might have to go through hell to appreciate heaven. But I do think we have to look for the heaven, the paradise in our lives, even in difficult times, and work together to bring that more loving, peaceful, healthier world to others. That's one reason to come to worship services, to be with others in community who are also working for that beloved community. Now, when I chose the topic of renewal and rebirth, I did not want to look at just our personal journeys. I thought that our after the pandemic time would be a great time to think of how we might work to renew our congregation, rebirth it, not just bring it back to the way it was before the pandemic, something new, better. I still have hope for us, even as we've had to move back to online services only. We don't have to go back in our building to push our renew buttons for this congregation. How can we labor now for the birth of something even better? COVID-19 has highlighted the interdependence of all people in the natural world. The pandemic's disruption presents us an opportunity to rebuild a congregation, a community, indeed a world in which the whole of society is considered in what we do, not just our tribe or family. Our seventh principle lifts this up, doesn't it? We say we affirm and support respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. The pandemic has highlighted we can't just do this by singing songs and lighting candles. I believe we have to have a more radical response, a radical love. If Unitarian Universalists can't do this, I fear for our world. We must renew our own spirits, the spirit of this congregation, and we may have to do it from a distance from one another. We can't wait till we can all gather in the same building. Because of the effects of this pandemic and others that will follow, and climate change, which already is devastating many places, foreign and domestic terrorism, and the resulting physical and mental health crises that are a result of all these possibilities. Because of all these things, we must renew ourselves and encourage one another. One way we can do this by recognizing all these crises, while also be intentional about looking for the joy, the beauty, and the love all around us. It is there. It is healing. Just as we must pay attention to the problems, our own health and that of our congregation, the community, and the world, we must also pay great attention to the goodness, the connections, the love in the world. I encourage you to think of 3 people you will reach out to today and express your appreciation and love for them. It matters. It pushes their renewal buttons and yours too. And we could all use a little renewal. There will be other ideas and possibilities we can explore as we go forward. But just for today, let's connect, care, and share. The butterfly will come out of the cocoon. The rainbow will appear after the storm. And we will shout hallelujah with renewal and rebirth again and again and again. May it be so.